the audience that user or copy IP address A is allowed on the port number 25. 80% of you not know. But if I say that user A is allowed to access the mails, everybody will know. Now that's what is the difference. You have to bring the human context, the real context of the security, not any other stuff. Because if you know the real context, the event horizon will be much more clear, and you will actually attack the actual incident and actually close those things. And that is why very clearly, we identify in most of the cases that though user is weakest link, is the weakest link, but if users are involved in the security design, it will actually become the most important and source of intelligence. And we have seen that even if you see the physical world, you can deploy so many police, army, everything, but if the resident of that particular township actually gets involved in the security control, that's the most security, or the most secure way is the very easy implementable security. But otherwise you can keep putting security controls, it will only, the afterthought will always be active. So it's important to involve users and we'll see how we can involve users. So in the security, we all know that's very complicated. And what we have to do, we have to actually think through the proper design fundamentals, and we will go back to those proper basic design fundamentals, which we have heard about in. So whoever has actually learned the basics of security, he will know that what is those three basic things. Go back to our policy table and design policies, involve people into the security decision, and enforcement, choose the control which can actually integrate those two. The real implementable policy in your network, which is business policy, not the technical policy, and involve user in that decision making. And if you actually see, what we are looking for is a three-dimensional view, and this is not the new, this is the basics of security. But only thing is, when we go there, we treat them in isolation. People are separated, separately treated in the boardrooms to give them training once in a while, in a year. After that, they don't know what security policy is. Policies are created as a piece of paper, they are written thinking something else in mind, and implementation is not technical, and enforcement does not talk to each other. So what we need to do? We need to create policies which should be aligned to business, not to the technology. Because these all things what we are doing is for the business. In the people front, we have to involve people in the security control, not inform them. Because today what we are doing, we are informing security controls to the users of our company or our organization. We are not involving them into security control. And that's where there are a lot of challenges which are coming because of that. And finally, the enforcement will always continue to grow from more and better. You will keep talking about the new technologies coming in security. But the main point is, these particular enforcement security should be able to integrate the top two in the essence of it, and should be able to deliver the performance as well as we saw from the challenges section. So let's solve this challenge for something. Before I start with policies, I want to give some simple example of credit fraud. And that is what actually started in India. Now the ministers have actually approved NAT, which will be sharing the crime record and intelligence across multiple agencies. So that's the start of that era. And what we foresee, that the era would come wherein different verticals will also interact with each other. So transportation, telcos, banks will actually share the information with each other to give the information. And one simple example, which we have seen, that in the US market, that one of my colleagues was traveling, and he boarded a flight, and suddenly 2-3 police guys came and they nabbed 2 guys out of the place, 3 guys out of the aircraft, and nobody knew what happened. And everyone it was shocked situation. Next day, in the newspaper it came that it was a credit card fraud. And what happened is that these 3 gentlemen who were coming from 3 different places, they stayed in different hotels, they came from different flights, they entered the airport at different time, but they booked their tickets from the same credit card. Now, how is it possible to actually get? So this is called federated identity management. So there will be a time in future that people will talk about federated identity management, where you will share the intelligence with different agencies to get to the meaningful activity which you want to do against the threats or frauds or whatever we say. The point of what we are trying to do is that if we do not lay down the foundation today in our systems, we will be going for another generation shift. We have seen in India, most of the big institutions, they have gone through generation shift because they also grew the same way. They were on the name of security, they have a lot of networking equipment, which can do some kind of stuff on security. And they were compliant. But then they realized that it is not going to be solving their problem, and especially the very, very sensitive market of the finance and banking sector, that they realized that they are not going to do. So they went to an entire relationship for upgrading their data center to the next generation, where they upgraded the security control. Now they are finding it even more challenging because the intelligence has to be shared, and the onus is on them to share the right data to the regulators and to the federated bodies to map the right fraud line, and they do not have the systems now in place which actually deliver the intelligent data to the customer. And that's what is the challenge which is going to be in future. So coming to the policy, we talked about this, that there are multiple laws coming in. The point is that this is what is the law and nobody understands this. Only security technical administrator who has passed some 10 years in some networking component will actually understand this law. And this is where the problem is. That's why the fraud actually happens, because we are actually wasting our time, precious time, in trying to find out something which is not of relevance. But what is going to be next generation is that give you the meaningful information. What is peer-to-peer software? Now, for this, most of the people who are here will know what is the risk, what I am allowing in policy, and this is how the policies are actually written on the policy table. Business-oriented policies. It is not a technical policy, 425, 480 and blah blah blah. It is a business policy implemented in a single term so that even the layman can actually understand what is the policy and what we are trying to achieve through this. Then coming to the enforcement, very, very important point here in enforcement. If you see, there are multiple controls which will come. We talked about identity awareness, application control, data leakage, smart event, and there's so many other things which is there. Now, what is important is that what are the three top things which we have to actually, as per the trend, which we have actually missed in our intrinsic design till now, is the identity awareness. Our systems are not identity aware, they are only number aware, which is IP addresses. And it is because they are not identity aware, you cannot implement a user-specific policy, which in turn is business. Because users are doing business, not the IP numbers are doing business. So, you cannot implement the business-oriented policy. B, you never get the context in the law, which is the user context. Hence, you will never be able to interact the dialogue with the end user who is actually whose system is creating problem, who is actually part of the problem. So, what is an identity awareness today, and what's changing any change is access from anywhere. This was okay till now because access was from some confined system. But going forward, the access is going to be from multiple places. People are going to access, they are going to move, they are going to access from multiple devices. So there cannot be a policy which is IP based. Because they will change the device, they will change the policy, they will change the scenario from their accessing. And hence, the policy has to be tied to the user, not to the device. And what we are doing is we are tying the policies to the device. And the context will change. The same user when he connects to a LAN, and the same user when he connects from public Wi-Fi zone, and the same user when he connects from the mobile phone might have a different kind of access requirement. And you might have to create security policy accordingly. So, this is one thing. Second thing is that what we are saying is for next generation policy management will have a granular security where the policy will be tied to the user, not to the device. And this is the imperative of all the people because the way the growth or access factor is changing. Now, iPads are coming in, people wants information from everywhere. This is what is going to be the next problem. Then application control. We all know that applications are an integrated part of our business, and gone are the days when we used to say, I will not allow social media, I will not allow certain applications, I will not allow. Because this is the reality. As per the study, if you see that the Facebook has become the third largest country in the world, if it has to be a country. Twitter is 7th largest country in the world if it has to be a country. And they are the place where people are doing business. There's serious marketing happening on those places. Now you cannot say that I will not allow people to use this because that's the place where business is happening. The way internet grew, social media is the next generation. So idea is not to stop everyone, idea is to give discrete access and to ensure that people who are using these for a business purpose are using it with the consent, they're using it with the sanctity. And how you can involve the user is what is the next thing. Then the data leakage prevention. Now, biggest problem when we talk about data leakage prevention, even in the mature market, is that data leakage prevention is a technology problem. We talk about so many data types, so encryption, blah blah blah, how do you do? It is actually not a business problem. It is not actually a technology problem, it is a business problem. Okay? So this is what is the challenge. It is always a business problem, and we always treat it as a technology problem, and that's where the data leakage still happens despite of investing crores of rupees in the technology to actually go for a data leakage for a security solution. So what is the basic way? Let's do our fundamentals right. We will control 80% of the incidents. Rest 20%, yes, we have to implement technology. But are we doing our job for making sure 80% of incident, which is not the actually happening event, but due to the mistake and misdeeds, which is happening? Are we actually doing this direction is what very, very important. Now, after we all know that this all is there, and we know that people is very, very important. Identity we already discussed. This is what we do with our people. We tell them no explanation, no resolution, you are not allowed. And that is why he forced to go to the alternate channel, to use proxies, he used so many other channels and hack their own systems. Try to find the workaround because he was never informed why the policy was imposed on him when he needed a business access for it. And that's the problem. And when we did a survey, recently Checkpoint is a company which Fortune 100 company, 100% is behind Checkpoint, 98% of Fortune 500 company are behind Checkpoint gateways. We did a survey to our customer and we asked, what is one problem which you feel that is the basic fundamental you want to do a course correction in which you can create 80%, control 80% of security incident. And they came back to us and they said that if I can involve user in the right time, I can control 80% of incident without involving the IT. And that is the problem because my users are actually adopting alternate means because I am not informing them the why is this happening and what is how can I facilitate their general business need. And that's the problem which they are facing. So when we take all these things as we already discussed, so this is an example, typical example what I would like to illustrate. That we know that okay, we will take all the controls, we will deploy everything, application control, DLP, identity access, and this is what will happen then. You create a policy. Then, what happens? Policy doesn't match the real usage because you have created a technical policy, not a business policy. It does not match the real usage. And I'm sure most of you who are managing the network will be agree with me. Then mail starts coming to you. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And then what actually happens is, and after that is that you will create to monitor only mode. Which means that you will say, okay, leave it here, I will only monitor. Okay, because I am fed up of creating exceptions, it does not make business need and there is no real control. Now if you go back to the opposite objectives, with the objective which we bought that we control the incident is actually diluted. It is actually gone. We have actually resorted to monitor on the board, which is the one which we are there earlier also, in a similar mode. So, whole lot of investment which we have done, the time which we have done, not only the investment on control, but time of the team, the resources which has been invested has actually gone for a toss. So, what could be the next generation? Next generation could be something, this is just a thought, it could be something like this. When my user goes to something, I involve him. I ask him, are you going for a personal use, business use, or you are by mistake you are going, you do not know, and inform him that this is what is the problem. Now my user can decide on his own what he wants to do. Now he can go further down and say that you are deciding to go that for a business purpose I am sharing this document. I also show them the legal framework. I make him sign the contract on the fly that this particular information is correctly. You are sending it out, please sign the legal document right now. And once he does it, he goes out and actually sends that information. IT is nowhere involved. User decided what is his business purpose. He recorded, he became accountable, he is aware what he is doing, he signed the legal document, and IT is not even loaded for all this work. And if you decide, what is the problem of IT here? Most of the time, the problem, if it is application usage of internet, problem is bandwidth. That if I run on YouTube, he will go and see the cricket match, but he will not watch it. So my bandwidth will go for that. You can always say that if you do a personal thing, you sign a consent that I am going for a personal purpose, I will limit the bandwidth. And I adapt my security policies according to the decision, which is the business-based decision. So that is what is going to be the next big thing which is there. And the problem, the user will be educated on the fly, and actually they are doing mistakes, they will be educated. Not once in a year, you call them somewhere and take a training session on security, which they will forget after the training. So what will happen? When they do mistakes, you give them explanation, you educate them, you give them training, and give them a chance to resolve their own issues. Facilitate them to solve their own business problem. Because IT might not be aware of the business usage of all cases. They are not there to decide if you should do marketing campaign on Twitter or not, because it's a marketing team prerogative. So let them decide. You can always integrate to their manager and all it are also involved in it. But this is what is going to be the next generation, and this is a big thing. As and when you grow, we get more and more actual cases, and this particular thing will actually get fine-tuned further and further and further. But this is going to be the start of the next generation of involving user making policy a business-oriented policy and go away from those traditional architectures where, because the way we are growing incomes, as we saw, infrastructure going to cloud, people, assets are moving into information, moving into the PDAs, handphones, smartphones, the way the delivery channels are improving, the traditional security policy is not going to be enough. And we will end up today will resort to something like this before. So that is what I just summed up, so I'm just pushing up. Accept, drop and inform was our earlier thing. Can we ask user or can we limit user based on his input to our ask of the user? We can limit the access to it in terms of bandwidth, the time of the day or whatever. But it is based on the decision which is taken by the user. Now, very, very important, moving from the logs to intelligence. Now this is, today what happens to us is this kind of control possible? That you get, there are multiple security controls and they will keep growing or shrinking based on the time or era we are in or the kind of threats which are popular at that point in time. But can you get one view of all those things onto centralized system and say that okay, these many security control incidents, how many intrusion attempts, how many DAP incidents, how many blah 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 is in my network, and to the next stage, if I can actually grow and monitor my critical assets. If you see most of the regulators focus on this very, very important point that you have to assign or assess your risk and monitor that risk what is happening. And this is what is happening. You say that which is most critical asset in my operation and that's the most riskiest for me to get hacked on and then monitor the attack against it. And then you will build up. So you bring the correlated intelligence, which means that multiple components are throwing logs, you correlate them, get the correlated intelligence, get the situational intelligence. If the attack is coming from center, that is the